Vayikra, and heavily in the Vayikra. And it's also alluded to in Tazria. And you know what? This past, it's coming up, by the way. So maybe it's you bring it in Matos Masay, next week's parsha. It's going to talk about the waters of Nida. And the question is over there going to be, is the waters of Nida referring to the water? The Gemara talks about, the Pasuk talks about when the Jews come back from Midian. So Pashas Matos, the Jewish people are going to go to war against Midian.
Not this week?
This week is Pinchas.
Oh, okay.
In Israel, it's their
Okay.
head. In Israel, their head. This week it's Mata, but here in America it's Pinchas. And they're going to go to war against Midian. The Torah talks about when they come back from war, the utensils need to be purified because utensils, number one, the things that contain not kosher items, you captured their utensils, their cooking utensils. If you want to go ahead and use their cooking utensils, you have to purify them. You have to remove the absorption, the non-kosher absorption. The Torah says whatever was absorbed through fire, you have to use fire. Whatever was absorbed through, if it was not used through fire, then you could just wash it and clean it, right? Some of the process of koshering, of making utensils kosher that were not kosher, or the way you do it on Pesach, take a utensil that's used for chametz and use it, now you want to use it for Pesach. There's a way, now today most people buy a separate silverware and separate pots. It wasn't always the case. It's only because of modern that people are able to afford it. But if you look at the Shulchan Aruch, there's laws about, they're going to discuss about how do you make your utensils from Passover use to Passover use. And that's based a lot from the Parshas Matot. It talks about how you go ahead and make those utensils kosher to be used. And there it says, but you also have to, it also has to go to the main nida, has to go in the waters nida. So there's two opinions. One opinion, main nida, refers to, because if they came in contact with dead bodies, they have to go ahead and the ashes of the paraduma have to go ahead and be sprinkled on the utensils because the utensils are tameh, are contaminated. Just like there's a whole parshat Adam, parshat Chukat. Last week it talks about contamination. If you're in a tent with a dead body, what you have to do. So that may nida. But there's another translation. May nida is the waters of nida, meaning a mikvah.
That's why we dip
that the utensils have to, in addition, right? When utensils are bought from a non-Jew, which actually maybe I should talk about next week, because that's going to be the parsha of the week. When you buy utensils from a non-Jew, you need to dip it in a mikvah. That means you go to a store and you buy utensils, you buy new pots, or you buy new silverware. And rabbinically, when you buy glass, I bought a glass. I went into Macy's and I bought glasses, not a vase that I'm not eating from, but glasses that I'm going to drink from. All my utensils have to be dipped in the mikveh. And a lot of people have a lot of confusion about glass. But a lot of people use glasses for dairy and meat. And they think that because of that, they don't think they have to dip it in the mikveh. But the idea is anything that was owned by the non-Jew, and now it's a transfer of ownership from the non-Jew to the Jew, has to be dipped in the mikveh. I mean, if Christopher owned, I went to a non-Jewish store. Even if I went to a Jewish store, as long as it was owned by the non-Jew, manufactured in China. Even if you buy something in the land of Israel, you're buying it from a Jew, it's not an Arab, but since it was made in China, it was owned by a non-Jew. Now, if it was made in China, owned by a Jewish manufacturer, and in China because he owned he owned the factory, and then it was never owned by a non-Jew from the beginning of its making until you got it onto your table. Then it doesn't have to go to the mikveh. It used to be, I think, in the 1960s, when Israel when it was like made in Israel, the knives for the challah board. A lot of that, I think, was like the old school factory, Jewish made. Was never, and there was no middleman that it never went from China to us. It was made in Israel. Usually, probably ever see, was probably your parents would probably have something, a knife from the challah board, the traditional challah board knife, which is made in Israel. It's a very common gift set.
Right.
So I don't think it never was owned by the Jew. Sorry, by the non-Jew. It was from the beginning. It was always made in Israel by Jews, owned by, not made in China and shipped to Israel. That did not require going to the mikveh. So now that has changed. They're not made in Israel anymore, most probably. Whatever you can make in Israel, the amount of money that would cost you making in Israel, it costs you maybe, 20% of that you can just make it in China. So the market has left. So you could have a situation people think 50, 40 years ago when I bought the knife, I didn't need to dip it to the mikveh because it was made in Israel. They don't realize today that it still was owned by Goyim today.
You can't ever assume that unless someone really tells you that it's only made somewhere with Jews. Otherwise, you have to
Assume that the guy owned it at one time. And so that's also in this week's parsha coming up. So maybe next week we could maybe talk about those laws a little bit, either maybe at the Halacha or at the class downstairs. We could talk about that. That's something to think about. But there is a mention of the waters of Nida. So one shot is that the waters of Nida, that those metal utensils the Torah says, not only you gotta purge them, whatever, however you have to go ahead and get rid of what's absorbed in them, but you also have to bring it to the mikveh, main nida. The waters that a nida goes to, that's the type of water you need to use for your utensils. In the same type of mikveh, 40 sas, measurements, and so on and so forth. That's another allusion to the waters of mikveh. So, you were talking about where it's found in the Torah. So we already gave where it's referring specifically, definitely to Nida. It's an Achremot. The Torah talks about the prohibition of a man being intimate with a Nida. In Kedoshim, it talks about the punishment for being with a Nida. Very serious punishment for a person being intimate with a Nida. And I think in Metzora, it also talks about the length of time the lady is in the state of, good morning, of contamination. And so those are 3 times where it's specifically, no question about it, talking about Nida. In this week's parsha, not this week, in Matot, when it mentions the waters of Nida, that's a question, which waters of Nida? Because Nida, it could either be referring to the Nida waters of a mikvah, or other explain the Nida waters it's referring to is the waters of that's mixed with the ashes of the paraduma, which is not the water of Nida.
We would hold it's the water.
What's it again?
We would hold it's the water of Nida.
I think it's too.
So,
I mean, it's meaning that would depend if metal utensils, the requirement of metal utensils dipping in the mikvah, is that a biblical requirement or rabbinic requirement? So many say it's a biblical requirement, and that this would be the biblical source.
Mhm.
But others say that even metal utensils are rabbinic. So therefore, then it would be specifically not referring to the waters of that Anida goes to, but rather the waters of the paraduma that the ashes are mixed with. So you'll see there's 2 explanations how to understand that pasuk. Okay, so we started with a Dvar Halacha today. Okay, we're getting that one to get into, but I'm giving you homework, Adam. I'm gonna give you homework.
That's a homework I'm excited for.
Yes, you gotta gotta tip off the rabbi, you know what I mean? Gotta give the rabbi, what you
I gave you
think.
some field research, I think, for the homework.
Yes, I gave you
It's been a purely intellectual,
right. Okay, we are on Nun, the bottom. We're gonna have an interesting story here in the Gemara. On the bottom of Nun Aleph Amud Bet, 51b, just 51b5. Amma, first column. Amma Ravuna Bachia, Amma Shmuel. No, sorry, second column. Levi bereid Rav Huna Bachia. Levi, the son of Rav Huna, who was the son of Rav Chia, the Rabba and Rabba bar Rav Huna, and Rabba, the son of Rav Huna, which would seem to indicate their father is not the same person, because one is identified as Levi, the son of Rav Huna, who was the son of Rav Chia. And one is named as Rabba, the son of Rav Huna, without saying he was the son of Rav Chia. So it sounds like they're not brothers. Kadma Chamara the Levi, Chamara the Rabba bar Rav Huna. Levi's donkey went ahead of the donkey of Rabba bar Rav Huna. So now the fact that one's donkey went in front of the other donkey, so it sounds like that they were traveling, near each other, and maybe they left. We have to see exactly the details. Maybe it's the type of thing that they were. It looks like they're going together. They're traveling, and yet one of them went in front of the other one, and Chalal Daitei Rav Bar Huna. Rav Bar Huna felt a little insulted. He felt bad because he felt that this other rabbi was not giving him the proper respect by going in front of him. It's like sometimes you have like someone's going into a room, right? Who goes in first and who goes in second? Usually you get the person who's greater stature, he's supposed to get, you give him the honor, he should go in first.
But it's just donkeys.
That's right. So it's just donkeys, right? But it seemed that he felt, Rashi says, he felt, but it's true, it's donkeys, but you're leading the donkey. So therefore he felt that he was, they led the donkey, they were riding on the donkey, and you went a little faster, that you should go ahead, and he thought that you did it intentionally, which maybe is like not showing the proper respect. They bring down, if you have two people that are going together, one next to the other, the one that's not as great as the other one is supposed to honor the greater one, to let the greater one go a little ahead, right? And Tosfos explains, if you look at the Tosfos on the right side, so Tosfos says, Levi, it's bothered by your question a little bit. What's going on? What's the real issue? You want to look over here. You see this Tosfos over here, Adam? Kodma Chamrei de Levi, Mashma Shemechabdim Bidrachim. So Tosfos says, it implies that you give honor when you're traveling on the road. It says if three people are traveling on the road, right? Three people are walking. So Harav Be'emsa, the rabbi is supposed to walk in the middle, center, and the Gadol Mimino, and then of the next two people, the greater of the next two should be on the right of the rabbi, the Katam is Smolo, and the and the one who is not as great should be on the left. The Avraham, the angels that came to Avraham, right? It says over there were three angels that came to Avraham. So he said that the three angels that came to Avraham was also that the greater of the angels was in the middle, and the other two were, the second of stature was on the right, and the third was on the left. Let me see if they bring that down. There's none aleph on the base. Yud Zayin. So Rashi says, Avram said, Im no matzotzi chen beinech, Avram said, he said to them, if I find favor in your eyes, don't leave me. Stay over, stay a little bit. I want to get you a little bread. I want to get rest. Avram was trying to get them to stay. He wanted to be hospitable to the angels. And he said, even though Al Tova, he said, if I find favor in your eyes, why does he in your eyes? But he says in the singular language, like you're talking to one person, but there was three angels, three people, three angels there. So three angels, why is he talking to one? So Rashi says he spoke to the most prominent one of the three. And the Sifsei Chachamim asked, how did Avram know which one's the most prominent of the three angels? Rashi says, the Sifsei Chachamim says, because he spoke with the middle one. Because definitely the middle one is the Gadol, is the greater one. So you could learn Avram, let's say Avram didn't know that they were angels, right? He didn't know they were angels, but they were angels. And how were they, and what was their formation? Avram was speaking, when three people walk, who's the greatest, who's the most prominent, is the one in the middle. So Avram was speaking to the one in the middle. He's like and whatever he says, that's what people follow. And it happened to be that we found out they weren't people. At the end, we found out they were angels. And even the angels went the same style, with the greater one in the middle. Because the angel didn't say, you know what, I have to, like I'm not the greatest, or so it sounds like that it was, they were not all equal. It was a special formation, even by the angels. Now, Victor Rabbeinu Tam asked the question, because we find the Gemara in Brachos that, a entranceway that's worthy of a mezuzah, something that's worthy of having a mezuzah, that's the type of entrance, that's the type of entranceway that you would give honor to. Let's say an entranceway of a house that's obligated a mezuzah, so that's, a house has to put a mezuzah on the doorpost. So therefore, that's the type of entranceway you're going to go ahead and give honor to, right? Someone's coming into your house, Adam. Your house needs to have a mezuzah. So that's an honorable entranceway. Therefore, you give honor to the greater person will come in first. But a place that we don't have, it's not worthy of a mezuzah. And what was the story? The story was, we have Ravin and Abaye were traveling on a road, and Ravin's donkey went in front of Abaye. And Ravin did not give the honor to Abaye, that Abaye should go in front of him, even though Abaye was greater. And when they came to the entranceway of the shul, Ravin said to Abaye, you should go first. So Abaye asked, why only now when I come to entrance of the shul, good morning, you want me to go first? Why until now you don't want to give me the honor when we're traveling on the road? The basically says, the Rav answered, we only give honor in a place that's worthy of mezuzah. A road is not a place that you're worthy of putting a mezuzah on the road. Right? It's not a house. The road. So therefore he said, that's why I didn't give you honor. So here they're traveling on the road. They're traveling on the road. So why is it that he went ahead and he felt insulted? Morning, Asaf, we're discussing a Tosfot regarding the two rabbis were traveling on donkeys, the normal way of traveling in those days, and one rabbi was greater than the other rabbi, and yet the rabbi who wasn't as great, his donkey went ahead of the other rabbi, and the greater rabbi felt a little insulted, as if he thought that the other rabbi did it with intent, which you could ask the question, why did he think that way? Maybe we should have given him the benefit of doubt that maybe he didn't do it with intent, but maybe it seemed that to him, it's, if let's say it's unintentionally that your animal went a little ahead, but then you could hold back your animal. You have range to hold back your animal to make that. Okay, now I went ahead, but now let the other rabbit go in front of me, right? But the fact that he continued going ahead, maybe that's why he felt that it was done intentionally, and he was insulted. But the Tosfos asks the question, but we find that the only type of thing that you have to honor somebody is if it's a doorway, if you're entering something like a doorway that when you put a mezuzah on, but something like in the road when you're traveling, that's not the type of place that you need to give the person honor. Walking into a room, we said that's a place where you put a mezuzah on. That would be a place to give honor, but not on a road. So why is it bothering him? So Rabbeinu Tam answers, that's only when you're not going as a group. When each person is going for their own purpose. But each one has their own mission. Each one has places to go, people to meet, doing your own thing. But when you're going as a group, then you have to go ahead and honor wherever you are. Which means to say, it would seem to mean that if we're traveling together, right? Let's say it's nighttime and we don't want to travel alone, right? So we're going together as a group. So if we're going together as a group, as one group, like you're leaving together, you're traveling together, so then you have to give honor, even though as if there's no mezuzah, it's not an entrance that people walk into, then you have to go ahead and give the honor. The not as great person has to give honor to the greater person. It also just shows also, by the way, that there are laws about how the importance of giving honor to somebody else. Okay, so that's that now. So the other rabbi was brilliant, of course, and Cholash, what he did, we ever hear the expression a good save. So Cholash died to Rabbi Bar Huna. So Rabbi Bar Huna, back to the Gemara. We're now in the last line on 51b, on 51b5. So Rav Huna felt very disturbed, felt very bad. Amar, he said, I want to say something in order to make him feel better. So, meaning to say, I want him to know that I did not intend to go ahead of him. Even though I said, if you didn't intend, so then why didn't you pull back the reins or whatever it was? But I wasn't intending, maybe I didn't realize, maybe, or it wasn't intending that maybe the animal was in that type of mood or whatever, that, going faster, whatever it was, but I did not intend to do it. And also you have to realize people are sensitive, sometimes. And so now, Amalei. So again, the only question we have on the Gemara is that what didn't he give him the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah.
That's the question on this Gemara. Why did the other rabbi give him the benefit of that? Amalei. So in order to try to fix up this issue, he says, Hamor, so the Nana's great rabbi said to the greater rabbi, which is, so that's Levi. Levi is the Nana's great, is the second place. And the first place rabbi is, let's say, the greater rabbi is Rabbi Bar Avuna. So Amalei, so Levi says to Rabbi Bar Avuna, Chama she'asakav ra'im. If you have an animal, a donkey, that's wild, that's not, he's a rebellious animal. He goes zeh, like this animal. Meaning to say, this animal was rebellious. It went ahead when it should not have gone ahead. So, but he said it, and therefore that's the way he wanted to appease the other rabbi. Usually, can it go out with this bit on Shabbat? We translate, I think, pumvia, this iron bit. Now, in general, a donkey only needs reins to go out with. A prumvia, this iron bit, in general, is considered a excessive watching, excessive security. You're putting on the animal something that's not needed by the general animal. So we had earlier in the Gemara this question, and regular animal. But he's asking the question about a donkey, who generally requires a regular rein. Can eat now on Shabbat if he's wild? Could he go out with a prumvia? Could he go out with some iron bit, because this animal regular rein does not do the trick, which would seem to indicate that this rabbi is of the opinion a regular donkey, if it would go out with something which is extra security, would be considered carrying. Right? We had different opinions in the Gemara, different whether that's called carrying or not. Is it called, or different? The Gemara had different. Right, one opinion is Tanakama holds that it's something that's considered a load, or Hananya says it's not considered a load. So it seems like he's of the opinion that it would be considered a load, but now, and because for a general donkey, it's considered a load because it's more than that's needed. But for this donkey, the question is, what's the question? This donkey needs this. So what's the question? So why is this? So the commentaries say. So what's the question?
Wait, this is now a question about Shabbat, and it's connecting it back to the animals in their carrying, right?
Exactly.
Are we making exceptions?
Right, we're making exception to this animal, meaning this rabbi's of the opinion that you can't go ahead on a regular animal, regular donkey, if you put a higher level security that it's wearing, in order to hold it in, that would be considered a load. That seems to be
no exceptions for the special donkeys.
And his question is, but this donkey, this is not enough, the regular rein, maybe that's not called, that's not called extra security. So what's the question?
Is that a valid exception?
So now the question is, why wouldn't it be valid? If it is an exception, it's an exception. Or do you say that since most donkeys it's enough with the rein, we're gonna forbade this because of marat ayin? Because if you're gonna say that this donkey could go out with this iron bit, they'll think every donkey can go out iron bit, but every donkey can't go out iron bit.
You can't know, these things are not visually obvious.
Right, it's only because the animal is wild. That's how the Pnei Yeshua explains the Gemara. So the Gemara answers, Amalei, so Rabbah, the greater rabbi responds, Hachi amavuch b'shmei Shmuel. You know what, your father, so it's clear that it's, the two different, right? They're not from the same father, Levi and this other rabbi, Levi and Rabbi, Levi, and what your father said in the name of Shmuel, Halacha Chananya. The halacha like Chananya that even excessive watching of excessive security is not considered a load. And if you can even let a regular donkey go out with a prumvia, a regular donkey who reins are enough, you can even go out with this with a iron bit, because it's securing it. You don't need that level, but it's securing it. Therefore, so certainly in this animal, there's no maratayin. Maratayin means if I'm doing something wrong, it looks generally, what is maratayin? Maratayin means, in general, this would be a good example of maratayin, by the way, if it would be forbidden. In general, this is forbidden, but now I'm doing something in a way that it's not forbidden. For example, if a guy goes to McDonald's, if a guy walks into McDonald's to buy a Coca-Cola, generally the people going to McDonald's are buying not kosher food. That seems to be the general, now, unless you want to make a case that's not the case. But that's general. Why am I picking to go to McDonald's? Why don't I go to some other store? Because I want the burger, I want the fries, I want whatever it is at McDonald's. So the general, it's not kosher. But I didn't go in for that purpose. I went to McDonald's and I wanted the soda. But it's generally a forbidden thing. But it looks like I'm doing, but it looks bad. It looks like I'm doing a sin. That would be called marat ayin. But here, there's no problem if even a regular animal that's not wild could wear a bit, according to Chananya, and therefore, he's taking the position of the halacha of the Chananya. You have to see in Shulchan Aruch, but the halacha, he's taking the position of the halacha of the Chananya. Therefore, there's no problem for a donkey to go out with extra protection, and certainly this donkey who needs extra protection. That's what he says. But to me, when I learned this Gemara, what I like a lot to take out from this Gemara, that when he saw that he hurt the rabbi's feelings, the rabbi was insulted and sensitive to it, the greater rabbi was sensitive, he went ahead and tried to fix it up by saying, Rabbi, what would be the law regarding an animal that's wild like this animal?
But he does it in an indirect way, just like that's how Hashem does it,
Right. Now, why didn't he tell them openly, I didn't mean it? Rashi says
why didn't he tell
right,
them?
Why do you have to say it indirectly? He could have just said, Rabbi, I didn't really mean it.
Because if he said that, he would be implying that the rabbi may have not given him the benefit of the doubt. Like why even open that up?
Yeah, but the fact that he's still implying that, but the fact that he says a donkey that's wild like this donkey.
Yeah, but he's implying it's much less.
Much less. You're saying it's much.
It's impossible to imply it's zero without not
very
addressing
good.
it. So
I like it. It's a nice chidush. You're saying that he wanted to go ahead and instead of saying it directly that I didn't mean it, which would mean which the rabbi would be more feel bad about himself that he gave him didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. He said it a little indirectly, which at the same result was the rabbi might have made a mistake. It would seem. If you understand, it's hard to say the rabbi made that mistake, but it was a little bit less direct. That's what you're saying.
yes, it's opening up some room for he could be wrong too. He's not 100% sure that the rabbi's offended, but he's pretty sure. And even if it's true, he wants to pretend like he's not sure. And this just reminds me of the way Hashem communicates with Adam and Chava. It's always the indirect communication kind of style.
Right, very good. So I want to add a little chidush that maybe he did it this way because not only did he make the rabbi feel better by saying that my donkey went in front of your donkey, not because I intentionally wanted to go ahead of you, which I didn't mean it, But by asking the rabbi a halachic question,
If
reestablish shows you that I hold that you're the greater rabbi.
He's saying even if I am guilty, I'm fixing it.
I'm showing by asking the rabbi the question, you're showing I am second to you.
Let me recalibrate.
And therefore the other rabbi will not be sensitive. Because the Gemara says, because one donkey went in front of the other donkey, and the rabbi, good morning, Jonathan, great to see you, was sensitive that he thought that this other rabbi intentionally went ahead, which would be like not appreciating the other rabbi, not showing respect to the greater rabbi. And the other rabbi showed him by the way he asked him a question, by showing him, if I ask you the question, I'm asking him a question that shows you I really hold you are greater than me.
Right. Sorry, back up.
But we just have to go up to now for Shachrit. But I'll try to share with you. Have a great day, everybody. Stuff all the best. What a story.